Hello, what is up YouTube? It is your boy Brutal Chaos. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we are going to be checking out another recommended video. This is going to be why is there melee in 40K part 2. Why is there melee in Warhammer? Well, my personal opinion, guys, is because it's freaking awesome. Why the heck not? I mean, these big dudes, these Astartes and all these dudes, like, you know, insisting on a fisting. They get in your face, you punch them, you know? I mean, these dudes pack the strength, so why not? That's why it's cool. So, that's my opinion. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you for smashing that like button. Let's see what Arch here has to say, and I'll give you my thoughts and my reaction. So, thank you guys so much. Let's do this.
Greetings and salutations, friends. A bonus today, because I didn't get anything up on a Thursday. You could kind of consider this video the part 2 of why is there melee in 40k, except not quite. In this one, we are going to be taking a look at some of the types of body armor and protection in the 41st millennium. We're not going to be going into too much detail. I'm just going to give you a general lowdown on the type of body armor and personal protection available. Now, we will of course start out with the Imperial Guard, as they are by far the largest consumers of body armor in the 41st millennium. The most basic form of armor is the so-called flak armor. This is, well, it is a very, very, very simple, easily produced, and relatively, for its cost, effective armor.
Yep.
It is created by two layers of ceramic plates and kinetically absorbent fibers. It's not going to be offering much in the way of protection against other las weapons, or indeed ballistic weapons. It will provide minimum protection against light ballistic weapons like smaller caliber autoguns or pistols, that kind of stuff. It'll provide virtually no protection against bolt guns or shuriken catapults or, God forbid, Tau weaponry.
Oh god, not the Tau, bro. Everybody cringes at the Tau, like freaking all the range weapons. Like, I've heard so many, like, I love Gundam Wing, and I've heard people say the Tower like wannabe Gundam Wing, and I'm like, oh god, don't even insult Gundam Wing like that, because I love Gundam. Don't even compare them to that. So far, really, really cool. Like, yeah, this is like the standard armor that I've seen for the Imperium and Men.
That kind of stuff. It'll provide virtually no protection against bolt guns or shuriken catapults or, God forbid, Tau weaponry. But it might just save the trooper's life against stuff like shrapnel. Or light, well, not just shrapnel, but shrapnel in general. So not just, you know, artillery shrapnel or fragmentation from grenade shrapnel, but all of the shrapnel created by explosive weapons. Rocks, splinters, all kinds of nasty stuff. And it is fully capable of, at the very least, the deflect.
So it's gonna defend you to a point. Nothing like Astartes armor or nothing like that, but it's gonna, you know, gonna do a little bit.
There's all kinds of nasty stuff. And it is fully capable of, at the very least, deflecting some shots.
That's nice.
As long as they are glancing. It can deflect most of the energy of a las blast, for example, so long as it is not a direct hit to the body. And, of course, it does absorb a fair bit of the energy of such projectiles, meaning that the guardsman behind has a hell of a lot better chance of staying alive if the las blast only created a small portion of its chest, rather than blowing straight goddamn through. It is, however, of virtually zero protection against heavy weapons.
Yeah, it's just gonna blast right through your chest if it's a heavy weapon. Like the las guns, probably if it hits the shoulder, can like deflect off the shoulder pads and stuff like that. I've seen that a lot. You know, so pretty standard armor.
Heavy bolters, oh god forbid, las cannons, plasma weapons, it offers virtually no protection. But there is one slightly heavier version, also regularly used by the Imperial Guard, namely carapace armor. Now, the availability of carapace armor varies wildly. Some regiments from particularly rich or technologically and industrially advanced worlds have been known to equip entire regiments with carapace armor, but in most cases this armor is reserved for elite troops or for officers. In fact, a chest piece of Carapace armor is as much a sign of an officer's status as is his sword or pistol, or even his fancy hat. Now, Carapace armor, while being a fair bit more effective than flak armor, is still not going to be stopping any kind of heavy weapons. It is comparable to that of modern ballistic vests, except in many cases it will be full body.
Yeah, see, so you're more covered there, so that's pretty nice.
Including the thighs, the shins, the upper and lower arms, etc. It will provide fairly good protection against las weapons, but maximum 1 or 2 hits in the same area before it is rendered virtually useless, as las weapons are pretty goddamn good against armor. It will provide significant protection, however, against small-scale projectiles. Now we're talking autoguns, bullets, good old-fashioned slugs, pistol ammunition, that kind of stuff. It will provide a fair bit of protection.
Yeah, how's it going to do against that chainsword, though?
It's still not going to be stopping a bolter round or a shuriken cannon or, heavy Tau weapons or even just Tau personnel weapons by any stretch of the imagination. But again, making the soldier completely impervious to damage is not always the point. Making it so the soldier survives being hit, however, can be pretty damn important, as I've said before. Training a soldier in the First Forced Millennium is a pretty goddamn expensive and lengthy thing, and the Imperium needs all the manpower it can get.
Yep, keep them alive.
However, the Imperium also boasts one particular type of protection that is virtually impervious to most weapons, and that is, of course, the power armor, primarily used by the Adeptus Astartes and high-ranking inquisitorial personnel.
Oh, yeah.
Some Inquisitors and extremely wealthy worlds have been known to equip the higher officer classes or their closest cronies with limited forms of power armor, but the full suits of full effective, full protection, fully integrated life support systems and sensors of the Adeptus Astartes power armor is pretty much kept purely for the Adeptus Astartes, or the absolute highest and most valued ranks of Imperium.
So I feel like this is kind of weird pertaining, because I want to see what y'all thought. Like, this has nothing to do with the video, so I try not to ask too many random questions, but this is one random question. I've always been a big Fallout fan, and they have the power armor. So I'm wondering, like, because I feel like Warhammer's been around longer than Fallout, so did they maybe get the power armor idea from Warhammer? You never know. Like, y'all let me know what you think. So we're going to continue.
Imperial agents along the lines of Inquisitor Lords or high-ranking Collex assassins, this kind of stuff. It's pretty goddamn rare, to say the absolute least. Partially because a lot of the technology to create these suits of power armor has been, for all intents and purposes, lost. The tech adepts who create them at this point are pretty much just copy-pasting what they already know, without really understanding how the individual parts
That's
of
some
the
awesome
armor
looking
work.
armor.
Even less how they work together in unison. This aside, though, power armor provides virtually complete protection against las weapons and smaller ballistic weapons. A Space Marine is virtually immune to las guns and ballistic weapons, with the exceptions of very, very heavy ballistic weapons along the lines of heavy bolters and their own bolt guns. But when it comes to stuff like rifle ammunition, yeah, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage with any of that nonsense. And pistol ammunition? Oh, please. Now, las guns, some regiments have specialized settings on their las guns that allows them to be fired at maximum power. This burns out the weapon and can indeed damage it beyond repair quite easily, as it empties the power pack in just a handful of shots rather than the hundreds normal power consumption would set. These blasts are extremely short-ranged, but at close range, and aiming at one of the less heavily armored parts, like for example the helmets, or one of the weak spots in the armor, a fully charged las gun to maximum blast setting could put a pretty damn serious dent even in Astartes' power armor.
So I'm thinking he's going to get at, because he's talking about long range right now, when he's going to supposedly be talking about melee. I feel like there's melee because a lot of these like laser guns and stuff is not gonna do as much damage as melee would do to the armor.
This is, of course, well, first and foremost, the Imperial Guardsman has to be within arm's reach of the Space Marine, which is a problem. And secondly, the Space Marine, or in most cases Chaos Space Marine, is going to have to give the Guardsman the time to actually fire his weapon. Another unlikely event. But this is also where one of the little things about melee weapons comes in. I have been reading a fair few of the comments on the melee weapons video, and a fair few of them are exactly the kind of stuff I usually argue against. Okay, let's start from the top, shall we? How about a rapid-firing submachine gun type weapon? The point here is that a gun will always be able to propel metal faster than muscles, and yes, this is entirely true. However, that is dependent upon the personnel armor, the body armor of the target in question, being incapable of withstanding that ammunition. The thing with bullets, or other kinetic weapons, or even las weapons, is the simple fact that they have a very limited kinetic value if they are resisted by a harder surface. In the form of power armor, a bullet would simply spank right off it. It would provide minimal kinetic impact upon the target, and the dampeners of the Space Marine power armor, added to the fact that the dude inside is a superhuman Space Marine, means that bullets like that just simply have no bloody effect.
It's like shooting a guy like shooting somebody with plastic BB pellets when they're in armor.
Throw him off his footing and unbalance him, perhaps, but you're not going to be wounding him and much less killing him. So, in that case, projectile weapons are virtually useless. However, again, this is where melee weapon comes in. Now, the point stands, an arm, even a Space Marine arm, will not be able to propel a chainsword with the same velocity and penetrating power of that of a bullet. Yes, you are completely and utterly correct. But a power sword doesn't need to be propelled with that kind of power. It can cut through armor itself. And a chainsword, and a lot of people underestimate the chainsword. They're like, well,
like, look at this chainsword. Like, think about the strength that they already got and swinging that with that thing going. Yeah, it's going to do far more damage because because when you're shooting, it can be so inconsistent. Like, anyways, like if you think about it, even in the tabletop, like when you hit, like it can be deflecting off shoulders. Like I said, it can be bouncing off. So, like every shot's going to be different. But if you hit someone directly, like just straight directly with a chainsword, and you're a freaking Space Marine, you're going to F them up.
It's just a chainsword. How could that possibly be effective against armor? Well, here's the thing. The teeth of the chainsword is not just some rusty old metal. It is made from the same material that power armor is created from, adamantium. And if you have two equally hard metals grinding against each other, well, then it's a completely different story.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, you've got to remember, the blunt force kinetic impact of a chainsword is not the instantaneous transfer of energy in a projectile. It is a solid, grinding presence, pulled forward by all the muscles and strength that its wielder can muster. This means that if a bullet is a single impact, easily absorbed and abated by the armor, a chainsword is thousands of impacts by rotating adamantine teeth continuously cutting into the armor, scratching away at it, gaining a little bit more purchase every single time one of those teeth
and you're not missing, it's going to stay there.
Impact upon the armor. A little bit more purchase, a little deeper cut, a little bit more purchase, a little deeper cut again, and so on until eventually it will cut through the armor.
Yep.
And against less armoured opponents, the chainsword is an absolutely violently brutal weapon. It will tear apart flak and carapace armor like it was paper. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is personal protection in the 41st millennium has advanced so far beyond personal weaponry that it is simply far more effective to have a weapon that does not require reloading and that can provide continuous.
Plus, like I said, once again, like, not to cut off Arch, it's cool, man. Like, you got a guy shooting from far away, it's like, yeah, whatever. But you see two guys, like, literally up in each other's faces, like two Space Marines or a Space Marine and Orc beating the crap out of each other and blood flying, you're like, heck yes.
Continuous offensive force and continuous kinetic impact rather than a submachine gun or a rifle. Because, again, here's the thing. You can unload a submachine gun into the chest plate of a Space Marine, but when you're out of ammo, his chainsword will still be roaring.
Yep.
Now, in many cases, this also does vary a little bit, and we'll be moving on from the Imperium here. First up, we're going to take a look at the Tau.
Oh,
because
God.
the Tau has developed a rather ingenious set of power armor. Well, power armor is actually incorrect, although...
I know a lot of people that do not like the Tau.
Partially, I would almost call it power armor. Well, again, it is not correct, don't get me wrong here, but their helmets contain a far greater variety of sensors and augmetics than that of normal flak or carapace armor, so while the armor itself is not powered, the helmet is essentially a bit of a heads-up display in many cases, and provides the Tau Fire Warrior with a hell of a lot more information than anything the Imperial Guardsman is blessed with. Now, the armor itself is comparable to Imperial Carapace armor. It is created from an outer layer of hard, dense, solid carapace-like material, designed essentially to break lesser impacts. If something doesn't have the penetrating power to get through this material, it will simply bounce off, doing no damage. Beneath this layer is a layer of shock-absorbent material, there to disperse and lessen kinetic impacts, so that if a bullet manages to penetrate the outer layer, it will have lost a fair bit of its power doing so, and the rest of its kinetic energy will be absorbed by the absorbent materials underneath.
That's pretty cool.
This is, of course, in ideal circumstances, and even Tau power armor provides somewhat limited protections against heavy weapons. It can protect the wearer relatively well, about as well as carapace armor, against stuff like las weapons, but again, 2 or 3 impacts will pretty much take out the vast majority of the armor's effectiveness. Against stuff like bolt guns, heavy bolters, stuff like that, even the standard infantry weapon of the Tau themselves, it will provide virtually no protection. And
I think they would look way more cool if they had like a power sword katana or something.
Again, here's another thing that makes melee weapons a hell of a lot more effective in close range against this kind of effective power armor. A weapon is inaccurate, even at this kind of close range, unless you're bringing it up to aim, which you are most definitively not doing in close quarter combat. You're not going to be hitting very accurately, which means that a person, or in this case a Tau, that has the most of his body covered in armor, has a far greater chance of surviving that burst of firepower, whereas a sword can be guided far more accurately into the various weak spots of the armor. Not to mention the simple fact that even a chainsword will cut through power armor, and will make an absolute mockery of Tau armor.
Which, and I know everybody that don't like Tau would love that. So, I mean, basically it's needed. It's needed in Warhammer. It wouldn't make no sense for melee to not be in Warhammer. Like, you know, it's far more consistent. You know, of course you want to get up in the face. Everybody wants to see somebody beat the crap out of somebody. They want to see them get chopped up, beat up. It's insisting on the fisting, you know, smashed up, you know. You gotta smash walls, you gotta punch doors, you know, punch towels in the face, you know, it's cool.
Then, again, a little bit of another note on the whole Tau stuff.
And like you said, bullets aren't always accurate. And like, just because bullets hit doesn't mean that it's going to do anything, like I said. And once you're out of bullets and they got like a power fist, lightning claws, thunder hammer, you know, any of that stuff, they're gonna smack the crap out of you. Like, they got that chain sword, they're gonna put it right in your face. Like, you're done.
You see those massively oversized shoulder guards they've got there?
Yep.
This is part of the Tau's limited, though perfectly existent, melee principle. The idea is very simple. In melee combat, the Tau will present his most heavily protected, its left-hand side, with the large piece of shoulder guard, towards the enemy, and use it almost as an ablative shield.
They would have
He
to.
will try and get the opponent to attack him in such a way that he can block the attack on his large shoulder guard. This will allow him to strike low with his own melee weapons, or pull back, letting the blow slide off his shoulder guard while bringing to bear his primary weapon and gaining himself range.
Yeah, like kind of staggering them. I mean, it's smart. They gotta have some kind of balance to, counter that.
It's a rather ingenious little piece of design, really. Takes a fair bit of influence from Japanese armor, no doubt.
Yep. That's why I said they would look cool with, like, katanas.
Let's move on to something a little bit different. How about Eldar armor? Now, the Eldar armor may look flimsy, and indeed, compared
Looks
to
cool.
the weaponry it's faced against chainswords, bolt guns, and las weapons, it indeed is. It can dissipate a las blast or two, but not with any great reliability. However, it is extremely flexible, and it is relatively hard. It will absorb light munitions, light pistol ammunitions, with a relative security. But its primary way of defense is not the armor, or, well, partially it is, but it is the speed and the reactionary capabilities of the wearer. Eldar armor weighs virtually nothing, and for someone who has
Look at it. It doesn't look like it would protect much, but I bet it does more than what it seems. Like, I don't know too much about the Eldar, so it's pretty cool to check them out.
been trained to wear it for a very, very long time, as Eldars live for a very, very, very long time.
Yep.
It is
I do know
very
that.
easy to wear. This means that the Eldar can keep dancing around, dodging and weaving, which means that in the vast majority of cases, attacks of a ranged nature against the Eldar have a pretty good chance of just glancing him, and in this
he's
case,
gonna dodge
his
it.
armor is more than capable of protecting him against light weapons like las guns and small caliber ammunitions. As long as they are glancing hits, he's perfectly fine. Some Eldar also use displacement fields that essentially create almost miniature mirages, holograms, that makes it appear as if the wearer is a few centimeters
I was supposed to say, look at that Ultramarine compared to the freaking Eldar there, man. He's so tiny compared to him.
to the right or a few centimeters to the left, enough to make sure that a lot of the enemy ammunition will go harmlessly past the Eldar or deflect off his armor. Again, the primary defensive mechanism of the Eldar is to just not get hit. But this is again one of those things where melee weapons help a hell of a lot more.
Yep.
He might be able to deflect a shot from a las weapon, for example. He might be able to dodge out of the way of a las weapon. All of these things are perfectly possible. He might even be able to dodge and weave his way out of the way of a burst of automatic fire at close range, considering the simple fact that
They're
close
tiny.
quarters fighting, your arch of fire is quite limited and easily to predict for someone who has literally been trained to predict this for a couple hundred bloody years at this point. But a sword, well, if a sword catches the Eldar, again,
that's gonna cut
we
him
have
up.
that whole constant force thing. Now, if this was just a
hurt.
sword, then the Eldar simply riding the blow might be enough to dissipate the vast majority of the kinetic energy. But a chainsword? Again, remember, it scratches the armor, it digs in. It scratches the armor deeper, it digs in deeper. The more pressure you can apply to the blade, the more effective it is, which makes the Eldar's preferred way of defense simply just riding the blow.
Yeah, so it like sticks in and just grinds. It's like a meat cutter, man. Like another another random question. It kind of goes with the melee, and then I seen the Space Marine here. It reminds me of the game. I seen a game called WARHAMMER40K Space Marine. So I think in that game he has a chainsword. Let me know if that game is worth it. Like I said, I've been wanting to try to get it on Steam. I thought they had it on Xbox, but I didn't see it. I looked it up because I heard it's single player, but it looks freaking awesome. So let me know if it's any good. If it is, I'll pick it up.
Far, far less effective.
Use that chainsword, chop up some freaking people. I think it's orcs in that game.
Of course, you still have to hit the bastard, which is no easy feat for
Oh yeah, because he can roll out of the way.
Again, a Space Marine, hell of a lot easier. certainly a hell of a lot easier than
Bigger
nailing
target.
the bastard over several hundred meters while he's dodging and weaving with a bolt gun. Even for an Imperial Astartes, that is quite the shot.
Yeah, it is.
Then we have the complete and utter opposite, yeah? Orcs. Now, orcs don't really need armor. They are tough enough to eat an Imperial Las Blast without giving too much of a crap. In fact, there are plenty of stories of orcs eating several Las Blasts to the torso before finally falling over dead. And they can make far better use of simple armor. An orc might simply just strap a nice thick piece of metal to his chest. It would encumber a human to the point of not even allowing him to fight anywhere near effectively.
Look at them, they're cool.
It's not even noticeable. And since orcs are considerably tougher than humans, this means that the kinetic impact of the weapon is virtually nullified by the...
And they get shot, they don't give a crap, man. That's their thing. Wog, like that's what they live for, man. They live for melee. Like they want to be in your face, and they want like to be attacked. Like they get excited about that stuff.
Massive slabs of green muscle underneath.
The green boys.
In this case, again, the consistent force of a cutting weapon is just more effective. If you lop off a greenskin head, at the very least you'll be sure that the bastard will die. Shoot him in the face with a lasgun, and again, you're relatively certain he's going to be falling over, but that means you've got to be close enough to reliably hit the orc's head, as hitting him in the torso, the legs, the arms, or the shoulders are likely to do precisely dick.
Yep.
And, of course, there are some orcs who do wear heavy armor. The wonderful example in front of you right now is Gazgul Magthracha, one of the biggest, baddest orcs to ever be around, but we are going to be using him as an example of an orc in so-called Mega Nob's power armor.
Power fist.
Now, it is certainly power armor. It is powered by, well, steam, virtually, by hydraulics, etc. It's some pretty damn crude nonsense. A normal human ensconced in this behemoth of iron would barely be able to move his legs, not even getting close to being able to fight in it. But again, orcs, big, strong, tough.
Oh yeah.
And again, this armor provides protection simply by being so hilariously thick and heavy that small arms are able to just spank off it harmless. And the few shots that do hit and do some damage, kinetic impact.
And how can you not love the orcs? Like I mean, out of the tabletop that I've played before, I really enjoy freaking playing with as the orcs because it's so random. You never know. Like man, they're fun.
Etc. Again, behind it is an orc. He's not going to give too much of a shit about the kinetic impact of anything short of...
I was going to say, I don't think any of the orcs give a crap.
An autocannon or a heavy bolter. And again, there's a hell of a lot more weak points on this thing than on an Imperial Astartes power armor. It'll be a hell of a lot easier to hit said weak points with melee weapons, especially considering that a lot of it is driven by hydraulics. Cut one of those feeding tubes, for example, and you've practically immobilized one of its arms. Well, it's an orc. It's still going to move that massive ton of metal, but not with quite the same speed and, dare I say it, grace.
Graceful orcs? I don't know about that.
Now, for the two last ones, we're going to be taking a quick look at the Necrons. Now, the Necrons are, well, they're, you know, robots.
Yeah, they look cool too. I always like the Necrons. I thought about trying to play as them on the tabletop as well.
So, naturally, they're quite heavily
They're scary.
armed. And again, stuff like kinetic impact is really not going to have any real effect upon them whatsoever. Again, melee weapons are really the way to go, simply because if you can cut through the spinal cord or the neck, for example, the Necron will undoubtedly fall over, but mere kinetic impact is
this is going to bounce off of
virtually no effect on the bastard. And lastly, but most definitively not least, the Tyranids.
Gene-stealer Tyranids.
Another reason why the 41st millennium likes its swords and its bayonets.
Yeah, because they ugly.
The simple fact is that there's likely to be a hell of a lot more Tyranids than you have ammunition.
Pretty much, yeah. If you played Space Hulk, man, they just keep coming. You run out of bullets, you gotta start punching the crap out of them. They assisting on a fisting.
Which means that once the Tyranids almost inevitably get into melee combat,
Get them
probably
claws.
want something sharp to use against them instead of just trying to hit them ineffectively over the head with the butt of your las rifle.
Yeah, because they're going to try to stab you and everything.
And the Tyranids are pretty damn smart little critters.
Yeah, they are.
They have developed a very, very effective type of armor. There's the thing, they have these chitinous plates, which are not particularly thick, everything considered. They're thick and porous, essentially. They are there to dissipate energy. If a bullet hits this, for example, it'll break through the outer layers, and it'll hit multiple layers that are interconnected through a web of almost bone-like structure. It's a very, very strong protection against brief kinetic impact, which is exactly
they're scary.
what a projectile is. It's a brief kinetic impact that delivers a lot of force over a very short period of time. In fact, human bone can resist absolutely ludicrous amounts of pressure for very short instances of time, and the Tyranids use this to dissipate said kinetic impact. Additionally, they have a layer of moving muscle, or loosely fitted muscle, should I say, gristle and sinew,
They are ugly.
underneath these armor plates. These work as a natural kinetic absorbent. Essentially, they take the energy of the blow and they move with it, almost like a bit of a shaggy pelt underneath. This, in combination with the chitinous plates, dissipate a surprising amount of kinetic energy. Now, normal gaunts and hormagaunts, termagants, this kind of stuff, don't have enough protection to survive a las blast straight on. But a las blast on its back, its heavily protected back, which it shows a lot of considering it runs head down and everything, it might survive a hit or two, and that might be all it needs to survive.
And then get in with them long-range claws.
To get into close combats where its scything claws are going to be doing quite a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
And the bigger, badder Tyranids, like the Carnifex and the Hive Tyrants, have
And the freaking Brood Lords, oh my god, those things are massive.
far, far thicker shells, to the point where even Adeptus Astartes ammunition struggles to penetrate. A fact that the Tau found out to their rather considerable surprise when the splinter fleets of the Tyranids started invading their territories. They found that a lot of their plasma-based weapons were virtually useless against.
Dude, that's why freaking when me and my buddies play Space Hulk, man, like, I'll use my Hellfire weapon, sit there and shoot the crap out of a Brood Lord, but then, man, those things tank it. So he's got that Thunder Hammer, man, and that thing does work on him. You just gotta start smashing the crap out of them. Because those things, man, they're like tanks.
And in fact, they developed a whole array of specialized weapons designed to take down the Tyranids. Now, credit where credit is due, the Tau took this pretty much on the chin and started developing new weapons virtually immediately. And in fact, there is also a very, very fascinating story about the Farsight Enclave in all of this, which I will be covering in its own little video, naturally. So, this was essentially a very, very lengthy way of saying that, one, body armor in the 41st millennium has advanced to such a point that a lot of kinetic weapons just simply lack the punch necessary to get through, while the continuous force of a melee weapon are in many cases preferable, and the simple fact that a lot of stuff in the 41st millennium is so goddamn tough that it's going to get into melee, in which case, well, you could try to hit it over the face with your las rifle, but it would be a hell of a lot more effective to try and stab the goddamn thing, as a knife has got a fair bit of penetrating power, and as it can be controlled a hell of a lot more effectively.
So basically what he's saying, like, we'll watch it till the end, but man, like, it's more accurate, it's more effective. Like, it's just a lengthy video of him saying basically it's cool, you know, it gets the job done, whereas ammo ain't always going to do it, pretty much.
Than a projectile, it can be aimed at.
And it's damn cool.
There is, of course, a reason why melee was around for so long.
And it's fun
our own
to beat the crap out of them.
And why we still have melee today. I mean, it's getting ever more rare with the increased rate of fire and the additional tactics. And you also have to remember, that modern body armor is nowhere near as effective as modern weapons.
Oh.
While in the 41st millennium, a suit of power armor is a hell of a lot more effective than the vast majority of weapons it's going to be coming up against. And this has also served as a quick little breakdown of the various types of protection, and, well...
Yeah, it was a nice video about him. So pretty much, like, you know, it's needed. It's overall needed. Like I just said, it's more accurate. It's like, it's gonna do more damage. I said, you only got so many bullets. I said, and like, you got Tyranids running at you or something. It depends on the circumstance, but you know, melee is definitely needed. Definitely awesome. That was a good video about Arch. I did enjoy it. Like, I liked how he went over the different armor types, like, and stuff like that. It's like, you know, you gotta use like whatever situation you're in if you're far away enough to use that. But you know, still, in my personal opinion, melee is way cooler than freaking, you know, long range fights. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed my reaction to Arch's video. Stay awesome. Like I said, more is to come. Be patient. Thank y'all for being here on the channel. We'll see you guys in the next video.